Some of the world's darkest legends are from some of the world's smallest places. One of those places is Wales. Welsh folklore was born from Celtic mythology, but was distorted by other influences for thousands of years. From deadly curses to a satanic pact, here are 10 dark Welsh legends. Somewhere in the countryside is a monstrous black dog known as Gwishki. Much larger than other dogs and with glowing red eyes, the Gwishki wanders remote roads looking for lone travellers to prey on. It stalks them before pouncing and tearing the traveller to shreds. Those who look into its eyes find themselves mesmerised and unable to move until they feel its breath on their skin, by which time it will be too late for them. After taking a life, the dog will disappear into the wilderness only to stalk another road. The dog will only appear at night, so that only its glowing red eyes can be seen in the darkness, luring its prey into not fleeing. Below the surface of a small lake, hundreds have lost their lives. The lake is occupied by some kind of being with the appearance of an old woman, but she is not quite human. With beautiful music, she lures those passing by towards the lake. The closer they get, the more strongly they feel the pull of her music. On reaching the center of the lake, the old woman emerges from below and drags them underwater to die. She was once a young woman, but cursed by a witch. The curse took her youth, her ability to die, and confined her to the lake. But the curse could be broken in exchange for 900 lives, and so she has since drowned hundreds in the hope of regaining her youth. In the 17th century, a group of women arrived at the Welsh coast in a boat. The boat had no sails, and so locals tried to push the boat away from the shore, as in those days a common way to deal with witches was to cast them into the sea in a boat without sails. But the women made it onto land. Locals promised them no harm if they settle outside the town and agree not to enter, but they would not keep to this deal. They did turn out to be witches and soon took to terrorizing locals. They put curses on farms, demanding payments to remove them. They entered the town freely and stole goods, casting spells on anyone to resist. After months of terror at the hands of their new neighbours, locals attacked the witches as a group. Surrounding them, they burned every witch at the stake. But now with a taste for blood and revenge, they could not distinguish between witches and innocent people. From that day, any woman to pass through their town was accused of witchcraft and burned alive. Centuries ago, there was a thriving town ruled by a lord. His daughter fell in love with a lower class man, but her father would not let her marry him, as he was neither rich nor of noble birth. So the man left the town, promising not to return until he was vastly wealthy. He wandered remote roads and pathways until finally seeing an opportunity. A man on horseback wearing expensive clothing was approaching. He hid behind a bush but jumped out when the wealthy man passed and stabbed him to death. On the man, he found enough gold to last a lifetime. He was rich, if he could get away with it. He buried the body and returned home as a wealthy man. The lord was impressed by his change in fortune and allowed him to marry his daughter. On the night of their wedding, a large storm struck the area. Whistling through the wind, he heard the words, "Vengeance will come." They thought nothing of it, but on the day their child was born, a similar storm hit the area, and with it, massive waves. By the next morning, the entire town was underneath a vast lake. Its entire population drowned that night. None escaped, and its ruins remain underwater. In a small village long ago, two lovers were set to be married. Their village held a tradition where on the morning of their wedding day, the bride would hide somewhere for the groom to come and find her. But unlike other weddings, he was unable to find his bride. He searched the whole town but still didn't find her by nightfall. Some said she must have run away, but he couldn't accept that. For several months he searched the surrounding countryside for her, slowly losing his mind as the search stretched on. The now deranged man finally accepted that she was gone. Years later, he was out wandering the town on a stormy night. He reached an oak tree where he and his missing bride spent countless afternoons together. A bolt of lightning struck the tree, splitting it in half, and now inside the oak tree could be seen a female skeleton wearing a wedding dress. It was his bride from all those years ago. On realizing that, he died of grief and heartbreak. The tree still stands today, but no bird nor ground animal will go near it. Raglan Castle was built in medieval times, but on the site of an ancient battlefield. In the 1800s, an owl much larger than other owls was known to fly above the battlefield. Locals would stay away from the owl, believing it was part of a curse surrounding the area. Thousands of years before, owls were seen as symbols of black magic, and their presence was a sign of evil. But now one man from far away didn't believe the battlefield was cursed. He shot the owl dead, admiring its size. Just as the curse told would happen, that man died before nightfall, choking on his dinner. "700 years ago, a young shepherd walked past a lake. On a rock in the lake, he saw the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. The woman agreed to marry him if he would treat her with kindness, but warned that if he were to hit her 3 times, she would return to the lake. On those terms they married and had 3 children, but at the christening of their first child she began to cry. She could see that the child was mortal and unlike her could drown in water. He struck her to stop the crying. Years later he would strike her again at a wedding, when she could see the groom would soon die. When the groom did die, he struck his wife again out of grief. She had been hit 3 times, and so she immediately headed towards the lake. The shepherd tried to stop her, promising never to hurt her again, but she didn't even look at him or their 3 children. She walked into the lake and was never seen again, but her children followed after her, drowning without their mother noticing. Carmarthen is a small town in southern Wales. Arthurian legend tells that Merlin was born in a cave outside the town, and grew up in the area. He was especially fond of a particular oak tree within the town, but as an adult he learned that the tree was said to be cut down, so Merlin made a prophecy to protect it. "When Merlin's oak shall tumble down, so shall fall Carmarthen town." For centuries people would cite these words claiming the town would be flooded, but eventually the tree died. A man poisoned it during the 19th century to stop criminals from meeting under it. In coming decades the oak would fall apart, until in 1978 the last fragment of Merlin's oak was removed. Soon after, the worst flood in memory hit the town. Many saw this as Merlin's prophecy actualizing. Known as Devil's Bridge are 3 bridges built upon each other. The top bridge was built in 1901, the middle in 1753, and the first bridge in medieval times. You might think the more recent bridges were built out of necessity, as stronger bridges are now required, but they were built to keep people away from the original bridge, so that no more people could be exposed to its evil. The first bridge was built by the devil. An old woman once stood on the cliff top, with no way to cross the river below, and in that moment the devil appeared before her. He offered to build her a bridge in return for the soul of whoever crossed it first. She agreed to his terms, but with a bridge standing before her was reluctant to cross and surrender her soul to the devil. One day later she threw a loaf of bread across the bridge, causing her dog to follow after it. The dog was first to cross the bridge, but refusing to accept this, Satan disappeared without claiming any soul. Legend tells of an invisible island at the center of a lake. Humans could not see nor access the lake apart from one day per year. Each year on May Day, a doorway leading to the island would appear on a rock beside the lake. Those who walked through that door found themselves in a magical garden on the island. It was a paradise by comparison to the outside world, with an abundance of the best tasting fruit anyone could have. The garden was maintained by fairies and other mythical creatures who lived there. They treated their human guests well, but they warned all humans not to take anything away from the island. But one man ignored the warning, taking a flower from the garden as proof of its existence. He walked back through the doorway assuming all was well, but the moment he stepped back into our world he fell to the ground in a state of confusion. He lost his mind that day and for the rest of his life was known as a mindless fool. The doorway did not appear the next year, and in the centuries since has never been seen again.